it's my pleasure to introduce Mariela to you all. Mariela has taught English in the States, in Thailand, in Mexico, and she is a cherished member of the Macmillan family. She's the publisher for our American pre-primary and primary courses, and a very passionate member of our team, passionate about childhood development and learning and creating brilliant resources for all you teachers to learn. And today she is going to give us guidance for how to help our students thrive as global citizens. So, Mariela, over to you.
Wonderful. I am so excited to be here. Thank you, everybody. It's amazing to see people from so many places. It's truly, it's a marvel for me. I saw that we've got people from Iran, from Jordan, from Morocco, from India, from Ukraine, from Bulgaria, Russia, Turkey, Italy, Mexico, Peru, Argentina, Thailand, Spain. It's amazing. Thank you all for being here. I am so excited. So let's get to the topic of today, educating global citizens. I want to involve you as much as possible, and I'm so glad that you can type in all of your comments. One of the things that I like to acknowledge at the beginning of this presentation, when I want to introduce you to this concept if you haven't thought about it, read about it, or used it in your classrooms, or just engage you in conversation if you have. But I'd like to acknowledge that you are already juggling so much as an English language teacher, and there's so much that is already happening in the classroom. So what are some of the things that you are juggling and that you're thinking about when you are teaching English, whether it is primary, pre-primary, secondary, young adult, adult, business? What are some of the things that you have to bring into the classroom when you're teaching English? Put notes in the chat box. So this talk, yes, levels of their differences in abilities, difference in their knowledge, motivation, critical thinking. You bring in the 4 C's. Oh, you have to gymnasium. Okay, levels, cultural differences, life skills. So absolutely, you're giving us lots of the things that you're already juggling and that you're already dealing with. Empower them to learn content knowledge, not just English, their motivation. Motivation for adult learners as well. So as you can see, I just put some bubbles on screen to give us these are just some of the things that are a given. We deal with grammar, with teaching spelling, with teaching phonics, pronunciation, vocabulary, the 4 skills. And then on top of all of the natural English related aspects of teaching, we're also juggling so many things that we're aware of as English language teachers. Often teachers tell me that as the English language teacher in their institution, whether it's a school, university, whatever it is, they're sometimes bringing in and more aware of trends, of methodologies, and bringing that into your classroom, along with everything else that has to do with English. So whether you're bringing other subject areas through CLIL or English for academic purposes, whether you're helping students develop their social emotional learning skills or their collaboration skills, their life skills, different elements of literacy, all of these things you're juggling with English and alongside English. So today, I'd like to bring in the topic of global citizenship and say that actually this is something that can help us bring everything together. Global citizenship can bring together the different areas of English and other strands of development and give us a wider purpose, both to the students, regardless of their age, and to the teacher. So yes, people are reacting to all the different skills that people need and everything that they bring in from their life. Yes, all of this has a place in the English language classroom. Let's see, I'd like to propose to you a way that we bring this all together. So before I can tell you how, I'd like to talk about the topic of what is global citizenship education? What are we in this webinar for exactly? It's something that has been around for a very long time in terms of the concept. In fact, one of the Greek philosophers talked about being a citizen of the world, Diogenes. referred to himself more as a citizen of the world than of his particular city-state, which was Athens, which he didn't agree with very much. So nowadays, global citizenship is even more in even more of our lives. There is a poll that the BBC does where they asked people if they saw themselves more as a global citizen than as a citizen of their country. And over half of the people that they polled said that they did, that they saw themselves more as connected to the world than to their particular country. 43 disagreed strongly and 6 somewhat. Now, imagine if this poll didn't put them as opposing things. Imagine if the poll said, I see myself as a global citizen and as a citizen of my country. How many more people would strongly agree? So global citizenship is something that we're all connected to in some way nowadays, through social media, through regular media, and through the ability to travel and to read about different parts of the world. So how are you a global citizen? In what ways are you connected to the world outside of your immediate day-to-day community? So, okay, lots of interesting things coming through. Cultural beliefs, ways of learning, skill. You're connected by internet, by Skype. You're connected through the environment. Somebody mentions pollution. The internet, books, social media, culture, shopping, online classes, immigration. Yes, all of these are ways in which we are connected, and we, to some degree, have an element of global in our environment, in our day-to-day. This webinar, yes, absolutely. Traveling, jeans. Oh my goodness, you guys are coming up with amazing things. So when I've asked this in the past, I have heard a variety of responses. Some similar to what you said today. People talk about the fact that they're connected through social media, people that are far away from themselves and that they might not see face to face in a long time or even ever. Sometimes you're connected through social media to people that you have never met in person. People talk about watching the news, being aware of the news all over the world, not just the news that pertains to their own place. And then something that one of you mentioned, or several, living on planet Earth. Yes, our connection to the environment and the fact that through all of our developments of technology in all kinds of ways, we have an impact on the environment and therefore an impact on each other, regardless of where we are. What you do in one place has an impact on another. So all of these things are elements of being global, right? So what is the difference between having these elements of global to our lives and actually developing global citizenship, incorporating global citizenship education into your classroom? What's the difference? How can we do it in a way in which it will make a difference and it will help our students' lives? So I'd like to introduce the idea that global citizenship has 3 domains to it, 3 areas in which we develop it. One is the knowledge about global citizenship and what we understand of it, the cognitive aspect of it. Another is the skills that we develop in order to implement it, the things we can do. And then a third is the attitudes, our values, what's in our heart. So the UNESCO has put together an explanation of how they view global citizenship, and they divide it into 3 domains of learning. What we were just talking about: cognitive, social, emotional, and behavior. So the things you have in your head and that you understand about it, the things that you learn to do, and then the things that you have in your heart, the attitudes. So an example we have on screen here: learners acquire knowledge and understanding of local, national, and global issues. So this is learners understanding how we are connected. And then also understanding how to think about these things critically, how to apply critical thinking skills to what they're learning. Then there's the attitudes, the heart part of it. And that's where you understand that we all belong to a common humanity, that we share a lot of the same things, however different we may seem. And then there's putting that into action. How do we act responsibly? How do we get the motivation and the willingness? Yes, so people are contributing through self-reflections, through self-awareness, project-based learning. These are all really good ideas and actually link to some of the things we're going to look at in a moment. Our students need more than linguistic skills, more today than ever. Yes, completely agreed. So I know that the recordings will be made available. Mike will come back on the end and tell you. So I'd like to share a video with you where we're going to we're going to hear about what it looks like to be a global citizen. Give me just 1 second while I find the video to play for you. So this video is going to help us see what it looks like to be a global citizen. Give it just 1 second. Okay, for those of you joining late, we're talking about global citizenship, and we're going to see a video that explains what does a global citizen look like.
The world is full of global citizens. They are everywhere, like the curious kid who learns that people in other countries don't always have access to clean drinking water, and uses her unique skills to come up with an affordable solution to help those people help themselves. Like the farmer who sees that jobs are scarce in his community and connects with other businesses to create new products so that everyone can earn a living. Or education activist Malala Yousafzai, who stood up to injustice where she lives and gave voice to girls everywhere. Our world needs global citizens because they take action to make things better, even just a little. And you can be a global citizen too. Global citizens have to pay attention so that they can understand different cultures and big issues that affect everyone. They feel connected to the world, they are curious, they value differences, and they think about their own actions and thoughts. They also have to be good at stuff. They have to be able to talk to lots of different kinds of people and understand their points of view. They have to adapt to new situations and think critically so they can solve big problems. All global citizens have to start off somewhere, whether that's by reaching out to people of different cultures to learn about their lives, volunteering to pick up garbage in their neighborhood, or seeking out information so that they can start to question the world around them. Global citizens come in all shapes and sizes. They can lead international organizations that bring countries together or teach the world about culture through art. So ask yourself, what makes you a global citizen? How do you want to make the world a better place? And what qualities do you have to help get started right now?
Okay, so bear with me while I get back to the presentation. I see that some people have still had some issues with the video and with the presentation. Hopefully Mike can help you in a private chat. So some of the things that we just saw in the video are that global citizens, it's not just having connections to people around the world. There's more to it. There's a shift in how you look at the world and how you look at other people. So global citizens are open. They're open to differences. They're curious. They're curious about others and about themselves. So this involves being self-aware, understanding yourself, and being open to the possibility that maybe you're not perfect, that there are things that you may grow, that there's growth mindset in it, right? There are elements that you're open to hearing from others, and you're empathetic. Global citizens, therefore, become flexible. They're people that can adjust to different circumstances and speaking to people and understanding people from other places. But they're also analytical. They're good at thinking about things critically. Global citizens, therefore, are good collaborators because they know how to think about things and analyze them. They understand how to look inside, but they also understand how to reach out to others. They're engaged and they're active. It's not all happening in the head. It's also doing things and seeing how do I do something in my life around myself. They know about other cultures. They're aware that there are a variety of ways to be on this planet and that we've developed amazing things all over. They're not just thinking about their own culture. And therefore, they appreciate diversity. They don't just tolerate it, they actually appreciate it. They're respectful of differences. And this all makes them really good at resolving conflict and working towards common goals. They're aware of similarities and interdependence of humans. They're aware that actually deep down, we're all a lot more similar than we're different. And this helps them feel connection to everybody. And they're effective communicators. So they're good listeners and they've got the language skills and also all of these abilities that help them communicate. So yes, I agree with a lot of the things that you're saying. Global citizens can be anyone. It can be a 3-year-old child. It can be an elderly person. It can be any one of us. We can develop this in all of our classrooms. So how exactly do we do this? How can we teach global citizenship education? I'm going to go now into the section of the talk where we look at all of a bunch of different examples that you could incorporate. And this, even though we worked on a series at Macmillan called Global Stage that has global citizenship. All of these examples you can apply to any age group, and I'll give you, we'll talk about it. So absolutely, everybody would benefit from thinking about global citizenship. There is definitely not a place of privilege where there's, one culture that could tell the others. All of us would benefit from thinking about these things. So how can we teach it? Let's start with some examples. We all read texts in our classrooms. It's one of the ways in which we get input for our students, right? We're teaching a language. So by virtue of teaching the language, we also incorporate texts that include that language, whether they're only written or whether they're audio as well, whether they're listenings. These are all ways in which we're bringing language into the classroom, but also it always has culture as well. Any text that you select, any text that your textbook selected to have there is showing a way of being. So we're going to do this activity right now where I'm going to read you this poem. I would like you to listen to the poem. You can read it along with me, or you can close your eyes, whatever is more comfortable for you. And I would like you to have think of the images that come to mind. What are the images that come when I say these words to you, when you listen to this poem? What things does it remind you of? What things do you see in your head? So, the clouds are gray, the tall trees sway, a storm is near, the storm is here, I want to run away. My home is warm, my home is dry, my home is safe. The strong wind roars, the cold rain pours, I want to hide, I go inside, I shut and lock the door. My home is warm, my home is dry, my home is safe. Thunder goes boom, light fills the room. I feel no fear, I'm safe in here, I hide in my bedroom. My home is warm, my home is dry, my home is safe. Now it's time to sleep. I can count some sheep. The storm is there, but I don't care. Soon I am asleep. Good night, Mom. Good night, Dad. Good night, Storm. Okay, thank you for bearing with my poem. Now, when you listen to this poem, what were some of the things that came to your mind? How did you imagine this? Some people say they imagined family. Some people say they thought about their home, homesick. So probably the images that came up to in your mind are images from your own home, from your own sense of family. What does family look like? So I am now going to show you how this text looks in global stage. So this poem is called The Storm, and these are the first 2 pages of the text of the poem. Now look at the images that we've chosen to go with the poem. Are they similar to what you had imagined? Or are they different from what you had imagined? So people are saying nice visuals. No. They said yes. Yes, very much, Mo. Yes, it's the same, similar, different, kind of. Okay, so everybody has a different experience of this. I'll show you the next page. You all had images, but they may not be the same images that are here. So one of the ways to bring global citizenship into your classroom is to expose children to texts that show different points of view. This text, even though the poem itself, the text itself, could be any home, anywhere, because it's the personal experience of safety and of home, the images that we've chosen to go alongside with this poem show, I don't know if you noticed, but they show an African family, and they show a dad cooking, and they show the family playing games, and they show the family putting the daughter to sleep. So if you think about typical ELT textbooks, you will think that usually they show just one kind of family, one kind of situation that means family. And what we've done here, oh, sorry, I don't know what happened there. What we've done here is we've tried to expose children to a different family. And we have many, many different texts. So there's a variety always. And these are things that you could easily bring into your classroom. So when you teach a text, read texts and show your students texts that represent different realities and different points of view. Represent cultures, genders, peoples in more than one way. Because yes, people are diverse. Expose children or students to multiple stories. Why? Because global citizens know about other cultures. And in this way, when we show a variety of experiences, we make those experiences normal. We make them part of the everyday, so that when you think about what image you think about when you say family, you don't necessarily think of that one way, but of many different ways. So I want to do an experiment with you. There are people online from all over the world. So I would like you to have your home country in mind, okay? What do other people think of when you say where you are from? When you say that you are from Peru, India, Ukraine, Slovakia, Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Jordan, Morocco, Egypt, Oman, Italy, Bulgaria, Russia, Mexico. What do people think of when you say where you are from? Okay, so I see mariachis, tequila, sun, fiesta, siesta, the Pope, sangria, couscous, Dracula, mountains, pizza. Yes. Okay, so you get the picture, right? This is what comes to people's minds immediately. So here's an example of what some people might think of when you think about Brazil. Some people might think soccer, might think carnival. Here's an example of what some people might think of when you think of Argentina, tango, Messi, I think somebody had said, correct? So is this an accurate representation? Is this, well, first of all, let me ask you the first question. Is it true that in Argentina there's tango and Messi and soccer? Yes, it's true. There is tango and Messi and soccer. Is it true that in Brazil they celebrate Carnival and have also soccer? Exactly. Flavia, you hit the nail on the head. Yes, but that's not the only thing. So when you were saying whether people think of Dracula or they think of couscous or they think of tequila, that's not the whole story. And the danger when you don't expose students to multiple stories, the danger is that they stay with that single story. They stay with that stereotype. So I like to refer people to an author called Chimamanda, no, I can't say this well, Ngozi Adichie. She is a Nigerian author, and she has a TED Talk called The Danger of a Single Story. Please look her up. Look up that TED Talk. It is fabulous. It's amazing. But what she talks about is the fact that the danger of not exposing people and not looking beyond the stereotype is that that's the only thing you have. And you simplify people to a cutout, to a cardboard, to one dimension. That's not people. That's not the way to connect. That's not the way to understand that we have common humanity, that we are similar in many ways. So when you are in the classroom, read text, bring texts that represent different realities and points of view. Depending on the age of your students, have them bring texts in. If you're lucky, you can have a textbook that does this work for you. But show students that there are many different ways to be, expose them to different ways. Ask them what other stories they know about for a culture, a country, or a situation. And the easiest way is to always start with ourselves. Start with our country, start with our culture, and that way you can see this is what other people see. We are doing the same thing to other people. So let's see that they're more than one story. So that's the first tip. Now let's look at other things we can do to bring global citizenship into the classroom. So when we're reading texts, we like to think about them critically, right? This is something you already do in your classroom, I'm sure, regardless of the age. You bring critical thinking, you ask questions of students to have them think critically. I'd like to show you an example now of a text that we have in Global Stage, and it's about different houses around the world. So it's the same chapter, the same unit of the poem where we're thinking about home. What does it mean to have a home? In this text, we're looking at houses and how our houses are made. I have blocked some parts of the text out for a reason. I'm going to do another experiment with you. So here we're reading this text called Old and New. It's a nonfiction text, and it teaches us about different houses and how they're constructed. Around the world, homes have different shapes. We're recycling shapes, we're reviewing shapes. What shapes can you see? They are made from many things. So you see we have bricks, concrete, wood, steel, and then it says find the labels. What do they tell you? Some homes are traditional. They are made in an old way. And you see the image up here of an old home, of a traditional home. Some homes are modern. They are new. This is a traditional home in India. It's made from mud. So we have I've blocked one of the images. I'll show them later. This is a modern kitchen. It's a home in Iceland, too. Then on the right, you see, this is a traditional home. No, this traditional home is called a yurt. It's also in Mongolia. It has one round room. There's cloth on the walls and wood on the floors. They're different, but they're always home. Which home do you like best? Okay, so I've read you this text all about different kinds of homes, and we saw different shapes. We saw that some homes are traditional, for example, this home in India, and we saw that some homes are modern, for example, this home in Iceland, and another traditional home in Mongolia. So, what does this text teach readers about Mongolia and India? Yes, somebody says, I think the pictures you have shown in the text reinforce stereotypes. Yes, I agree with you. It's true that there are yurts in Mongolia. It's true that there are traditional homes in India. But how can we make this text better? What can we do to make this text different ways of living, show different living conditions and cultures? All right, so let me show you what I had covered up. Let me show you what I had done. Let me show you what I wasn't showing you before. So this is the same first page. Homes have different shapes. They're made of different things. Now, you can see On the left, some homes are traditional. They're made in an old way. Some homes are modern. They are new. This is a traditional home in India. It's made from mud. This modern apartment is in India too. It's made from concrete. This is the living room. So now we have shown a traditional and a modern home in India. Let's see what happens on the next page. These are traditional homes in Iceland. They always have grass on the roof. This is a modern kitchen. It's a home in Iceland too. Now let's see what we learn about Mongolia. This modern building is in Mongolia. It's made from steel and glass. This is a traditional home. Sorry, this traditional home is called a yurt. It's also in Mongolia, etc. So they're different, but they're always home. By incorporating both sides in all of these places, not just India and Mongolia, but also the place that we had used before as a modern, Iceland, we now have traditional and modern in every single place we showed. What changed? Multiple stories, right? We're exposing them. We're breaking stereotypes. What changed is we're not saying only look at the thing that's different. Look at the thing that connects us as well. So we're incorporating how the world is represented in different ways. So how do we do this, and how do we bring global citizenship into our classroom? We think critically about texts. We analyze what is left unsaid. So if you did have a text that reinforced stereotypes, then you can ask the simple question, what is missing? What is missing? Are all homes traditional in this place? Are all homes modern in this place? Just because this text shows one thing doesn't mean there's nothing else. What is missing? You can ask that question, and don't stop when students have what you think is the right answer, because they might surprise you. They might come up with something else that is missing beyond what you had thought. Whatever text you have, whatever image you have, in whatever book you're using, you can do this. You can open it up as an honest question to your students at whatever age. What do you think is missing here? And we can have them as homework even. Go find what's missing. Go find something different. Global citizens are analytical and critical thinkers. By doing this kind of exercise, you are building that skill in with them so that they will do it when they leave your classroom. After they've done this several times, it will become part of them. They will look at something and think critically. What's missing? What did they neglect to put in this text or in this image or in this photo? Okay, let's look at another idea, how we can teach global citizenship. We have classroom discussions all the time, right? So classroom discussions can be about anything. Let's think about, for example, in this topic of homes, you might find this activity in any book, right? What do you prefer, a traditional or a modern home? You can do this as a pair work activity where you have student A and student B, and then they switch roles. This is a typical kind of ELT activity. So what do you guys prefer? I see lots of people prefer a modern home. Some people prefer both. Some people prefer traditional. So if you had this activity in your classroom, how can you make it more of a global citizenship activity? What can you do? One thing that you could do is you can give each student a task. So student A, include 3 reasons. That helps them practice their language. That helps them give information about why of their decision, right? Why do I prefer a traditional home? These are the things that I like about a traditional home. These are the things I like about a modern home. They can explain that. Now, speaker B, this is the twist. Speaker B, they're not just listening to be polite, they're listening to learn. You can ask your students to listen in order to learn more about speaker A. And one way in which you can help them listen to learn is by having them ask the question, what makes you say that? What makes you say that is a very good question. It's a visible thinking routine. It's a question that you ask when you want to understand what is underneath somebody's opinion, what is underneath what somebody has said. It's a neutral question. You're not saying that you agree or you disagree. You're just curious. This is a way to listen with curiosity. The first time I do this, if we were in person, I would have you do this in pairs. The first time you do this, sometimes it feels a little awkward to ask this very specific question. What makes you say that? But I promise you that when you've done it several times, what makes you say that doesn't include judgment. It's an open-ended question that comes from curiosity, and you will find out a lot of information about the other people. And you're training your students to listen with an open mind. When you do an activity like a think, pair, share, and you switch roles, and each one of them has to try practicing what makes you say that, you give them the chance to see what information comes that they wouldn't normally have gotten from the other person. So, incorporating discussions in your classroom where you're training students to really listen. Listen beyond English. Listen to the person. Listen to what it is that motivates to say something. Other things that you can do to support this: set classroom rules that foster respectful communication. This is appropriate for any age because there are people, even adults, who sometimes like to talk all the time and don't notice that they're not listening as well. Have students practice turn taking. Make it explicit. You're going to speak for 30 seconds or for 1 minute. Then we switch. Practice this so that people get into the habit, and tell them why you're doing it. We're practicing how to be respectful, active listeners. We're practicing how to listen to learn about others. That's active listening. Model curiosity. When you're doing an activity that's teacher-led, when you're asking for volunteers, ask people, what makes you say that? So that they see how it's done. All of this is because global citizens are empathetic and effective communicators. So we want to help them make connections with each other, and we want to help them see how to listen and how to communicate when they're listening. So let's look at another idea. Other things that we do in our ELT classroom, somebody mentioned it at the very beginning, projects. We incorporate projects. Sometimes our textbooks incorporate projects as well. So how can we incorporate global citizenship into our project? Well, we've just been discussing the topic of home. Houses, home, what makes a home, what qualities of safety, of family are involved in a home. So this is potentially a project that you might decide to do, a tiny house. I don't know if you are all familiar with tiny houses, but they're interesting. They're meant to be very, 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 very small and have all of the basics. So if you had your students design the ultimate tiny house, the best tiny house they can come up with, you could say, let's make it fun, let's make it practical, let's make it eco-friendly. Let's base it in our hometown. Who is an expert in your hometown? Everybody who lives there, right? So what are the conditions of my hometown that I need to incorporate into thinking about my tiny house? Whether it's weather, construction materials, circumstances of how the houses are arranged, where you could put a tiny house, all of these things that you could bring into your classroom, right? What materials you might use. You could have your students work in teams, and then give them a task that is difficult and requires them to negotiate with each other. How do you decide your budget? How will you use this very limited budget to do all of these things I've asked you to do? Make it fun, make it practical, make it eco-friendly. So this is just one example of how you could take a typical project, design a home, and then incorporate global citizenship aspects to it. So what are the global citizenship aspects? We're starting local. We're having them notice their environment and how it works where they live, where they know. We're having them think about their impact on the environment. What construction materials am I going to use, and how is that going to have an impact? How much is it going to cost? And then you set up collaboration so that, you know, if they're tiny children, maybe they're deciding the colors, maybe they're deciding the shapes, whatever it is that's appropriate. But they have to reach a conclusion, and they have to be accountable for how they got there. There will be conflict, and that is good. How do you learn to manage conflict unless you get to practice? So talk to them about that. Support their conflict resolution. Walk by their desks. Talk to them and help them come to an agreement, because conflict will occur and it's okay. It's the practicing with the conflict that they need to do. So global citizens are good collaborators, and they take care of their environment. And these are things that we can incorporate when we're looking at something like a project. Incorporate the moment for them to look at problems and to solve them together. So I have just a couple more examples to show you. I'd like to show you now a video. Find when we're in the classroom, either when we're having a discussion with our students, when we're reading a text, or when we're watching videos, find opportunities to reflect. The video I'm going to show you right now is actually a commercial, and I'd like you to think about, when you're watching this video, think about yourself. What are your opinions? What are your thoughts about what girls can and cannot do? What can girls do? What do you think about that? I'm going to show you the video, so bear with me for a second while I find it. But think about, what can girls do or not do? I could get this video for you. 1 second. What can girls do?
To run like a girl.
My hair.
Show me what it looks like to fight like a girl. Now throw like a girl.
Aw.
So do you think you just insulted your sister?
No. I mean, yeah, insulted girls, but not my sister.
My name is Dakota, and I'm 10 years old.
Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. Throw like a girl. Fight like a girl. What does it mean to you when I say run like a girl?
It means run fast as you can.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I know that some people can't watch the video. Hopefully you can access this presentation later in the links that Mike will give you, and you can watch the video later. It is basically a video showing that we, as in general, the media, society, shows girls as being weak and not being strong and not being able to run and not being able to fight. And so they showed it in a very effective way. So if you show a video, if you have a discussion in a classroom like this, you can help students learn to reflect about themselves. As I asked you when you were watching the video, what do you think a girl can and cannot do? I'm pretty sure that most of you would say a girl can do anything a boy can do. A girl can fight, a girl can run, a girl can do whatever the girl decides they want to do. However, we don't realize when we use language like run like a girl, we're saying not run well. We're saying run weakly. So people don't necessarily think about these things. If we give them a moment to reflect, then you learn about yourself. Oh, So you can use videos and texts as ways to think about your own stereotypes, your own thoughts that are not giving others full humanity, that are looking at others as a cardboard cutout. So support your students, find opportunities for them to reflect on what their own stereotypes are and what their own biases are. To be a human is to have stereotypes. We have to have them. Otherwise, our heads would explode with so much information. We have to have ways of processing the world quickly. So it's good to recognize stereotypes are part of the way our brains work. What are yours? What are mine? And then if we're aware of them, they don't hinder us. Ask your students how others see them. Whatever age, gender, culture they are, how do others see them? Global citizens are self-aware and curious. So let's go to my last example, how we can incorporate global citizenship education into students' lives. Into the classroom by making connections to students' lives. This is something we already do, right? Whether we're teaching vocabulary or grammar, whether we're doing reading comprehension after reading a text, we usually like to make a connection to their own reality, to make it more memorable, to make it easier for them to understand. So here is an example of the book that Mike was mentioning, Global Stage. And what we have here is a vocabulary lesson, right? So students are learning about the routines in a day. Get up, wash your face, get dressed, brush your teeth, pack your backpack, make your bed, take a shower, go to school, go home, go to bed. These are all phrases that we would teach in an English language classroom, right? So when we're teaching this, in this book, we decided to put a global citizenship element to it. So when we're teaching all of these words, first we listen to a girl called Maureen and her brother Louis, what they do in the morning. Maureen and Louis are in France. And so they talk about what day of the week it is and what they do on this day and their regular routine. So we're learning the vocabulary, but we're also learning about a place in the world where these two children have a specific routine. Then on the right, you see that we have two more children. We have Sita and Daksa. So these are children from India and Indonesia, and they talk about their routine. So we listen to them about whether they use uniforms, what they do, how they eat breakfast, whether they go to school on the weekend. And now we have heard about France, Indonesia, and India. 3 different houses, 3 different homes, 3 different children, 4 different children, and their different experiences. So we had a lot of input for the vocabulary because we heard get up a lot, and now we've used it and practiced it, but we're also learning about different parts of the world. Now, where does the personal connection come from? At the top, you'll see a question. Do we all have the same daily routine? So there's my self-reflection. Do I have the same daily routine as everybody I know? At the beginning of the lesson, maybe it's very similar. I don't know. It depends on the child. When you look at the bottom, is your daily routine the same to these children, to Maureen and Louis and Sita and Daksa? And then take it a step further. Why are daily routines different around the world? Yes, somebody's just said it. We're different in terms of your surroundings. There may be many different reasons. It could be culture. It could be weather. It could be if you live in the countryside and you travel far to go to school. It could be so many different things. And these are things that you can bring into the classroom, regardless of what book you're using. But this is an example of how Global Stage does it. So making personal connections to the material is important. Starting with what students know, their daily routine, starting with the things that they do before they go to school, and then building on that. Include questions to build self-awareness. Is your daily routine the same to everybody you know? Now that you've listened to daily routines in different parts of the world, or exposing them to differences, what is similar? Find the connections with other cultures. And then what are the reasons for things that are different? Maybe something that seems something that might seem strange for somebody, having cheese for breakfast or having fish for breakfast. For one person on one part of the world, that one of those might be different and strange to them. But then you uncover the reasons why. And it can be a simple conversation. Global citizens understand that we're all connected to each other and we appreciate diversity. So these are ways to bring connections into your classroom, starting with what they know and then building on that. So hopefully through this talk, you've seen that global citizenship can bring together all the different things that we do in the English language classroom and give them wider purpose, anchor them in something that is bigger than us, which is connecting to each other and working together. Now, how do we know that this is relevant in the real world? How do we know that outside of the classroom, it's important? I'd like to give you just a tiny little bit of history here. The United Nations has put together, in 2015, they put together 17 Sustainable Development Goals. These are targets for countries all over the world to hit in order to reduce poverty and increase the quality of life. This is something that 197 countries have signed up for, and people are trying in whether it's governments or different governmental organizations or education institutions or even companies and groups of companies. They're all looking to see how we can meet the Sustainable Development Goals. Goal number 4 is quality education. So education is seen as a key element to getting to these SDGs, these Sustainable Development Goals. And quality education is important because not only do we need to reach everybody in terms of education, but educating people to be global citizens is the key to unlocking, solving the world's problems. So education, the SDG number 4, education, explicitly says that by 2030, we need to ensure that all learners acquire the knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development, including, among others, global citizenship. So this is something that is governments are supporting and that is in everyone's minds. Another impact that this has had is that PISA, the secondary, the exam that is done at the end of secondary school, aim to measure whether we are preparing our secondary students to be successful in life. They have included a global competence test. In 2018 was the first time this test was administered. And the idea is that this test sees whether children, whether teenagers are being adequately taught to be globally competent. All of these things we've just been discussing. In February of this year, we're going to find the first results for all over the world of what global competence. The results became available in December for the other 3 tests, but global competence will become available in February. Maybe because it's the new test, I'm not sure, but it'll be open soon. And then finally, if you look to see what employers are looking for in adults that have graduated from university, that have experience or without experience, you will see explicitly things like global mindset. So in this case, Airbnb is a global company looking for someone who can approach all of your work with a global mindset, advocate for designs and language that internationalize well, and work with our translations teams to improve quality. So how can you work with a global mindset if you haven't done all of the things that we've been discussing? How do you know what translates well to another culture if you don't learn about cultures? How do you know what stereotype you might be using in your work if you haven't thought about your own stereotypes and how other people might stereotype you? So all of this shows how relevant these things are. So hopefully now you have seen that education is personal. All of everything that we're doing makes what education does is it makes the world personal, and we can make those connections with the world even more impactful. And I'll leave you with another quote. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. So I want to thank you so much for your active participation, for making time to be here with me, for listening to these crazy, hopefully not so crazy ideas that we're hoping that you'll take some of them on board. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. We have a few minutes left if people have questions. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad. Thank you. Really, thank you so much for all of your comments. I'm so glad that it's been inspiring. So I think, Mike, are you on the line? It is possible to watch again. I know that they are going to make it. I know it was on Facebook Live, and I think it'll be available. Let me see. Okay, Mike is having a technical issue, but hopefully they'll be back online in a second. I'm so glad you felt it was useful. Thank you. I believe you will be able to see the presentation again. I'm just waiting for the people in the London office. I'm in Miami right now. I'm in the Miami office. I think the London office is having a technical issue. The last sentence from my PowerPoint, absolutely, there it is. I'm so sorry for the people that had video or audio issues. I hope that Macmillan will make this available that in our advancing learning links. Yes.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I was busy reading this fantastic book called Globalized. Now we had a slight technical problem. So Mariela, on behalf of everyone here, just a huge thank you for a fantastic session. And we can see just from the chat box how much everybody enjoyed it. And I know we've had lots of people joining us on Facebook Live as well. So great that we've been able to introduce you to a truly global audience. I'd like to say a big thank you as well here to Federica, who does all of the hard work behind the scenes. And I'm sure, Mariela, you'll join me in thanking all of the teachers.
Absolutely.
All around the world.
Thank you, everybody. Oh, sorry, I'll mute myself.
Mariela and I have been teachers before. We know how busy you are, and we know it's a privilege that you choose to spend an hour of your time with us. So our gratitude is shown to you.